Here in Malaysia, after a wait of over a year, it's victory at last for Giancarlo Fisichella and for Renault, a 1-2 at last. Their first 1-2 in Formula One since 1982, since Arnoux and Prost came home first and second in France. Fisichella and Alonso make it 1-2 for Renault here at Sepang. But Jenson Button on the podium for Great Britain with Honda. Juan Pablo Montoya in fourth. Felipe Massa finishing in front of his illustrious Ferrari teammate Michael Schumacher. Villeneuve and Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, complete the point scorers. But Mark Blundell, as we look at the drivers' standings, we see how Fernando Alonso has benefited from his second position to strengthen his position at the head of those drivers' standings. A 7-point lead now over Michael Schumacher, with Jenson Button in third place, 11.7 points off the lead, the same as Schumacher. But for Alonso, seemingly getting a grip at this early stage on the season. And here in Sepang, from the Renault point of view, they seemed in control of this race throughout.
Throughout the whole weekend, I think they've been in control, not only from Alonso's point of view, but also from Fisichella. But the big thing for them also will be the Constructors' title, Steve. They need to make sure that they keep coming home, if it's not first, second and third, with both of those cars, to make sure they get towards that title, because it's an illustrious title for the manufacturer.
And for Renault, they seem to take advantage of just about everything that happened for them and against them during the course of this weekend. The problems they had with the fuel load in qualifying worked to Alonso's benefit.
They did, but it's a sign of a great team as well, that they actually make a small mistake and they can compensate for it. And they're very, very much on the pace in this given point in time, with their heads as much as what they are with those cars on the circuit. Everything that goes their way, they maintain and make a big thing out of it, but it doesn't go their way, they soon come back and fight with it.
But it's Giancarlo Fisichella who took race victory, and how much he deserves that. Let's hear from Renault's Pat Simmons with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Pat, fantastic job. It doesn't get better than a 1-2, does it? But the other one, not Fernando this time. Amazing race from Fisi.
Yeah, it was, and what a bounce back. You know, such disappointment at the last race, and he pulled it back. I said in our preview, you know, let's see what his character's like, and there it is. Great result.
So tell us what happened at the end when Alonso was catching him and looked like we might have a battle for the lead.
No, actually, we had a few problems with Alonso's car. We were concerned about the fuel pump currents. We were concerned about alternator output. We were nursing a little bit at the end there.
So really he was missing some pace, and without all those problems he could have gone faster, do you think?
Well, no, we turned both cars down. We didn't really have a race on our hands. We could hold Jenson okay, so we had both of the engines on minimum, but there were a few other worries going on.
Well, very well done anyway.
Thanks.
And even though we had high hopes for Jenson on the front row of the grid, I think most people's pre-race favourite was Kimi Raikkonen of McLaren, hitting just the kind of first lap problem that Ron Dennis said he absolutely dreaded in the pre-race interview. What happened from your point of view?
Well, hitting is the big word there, because I think he just caught out from clean hitting him, and unfortunately he seemed to have done some damage. You just see here, look, he gets a little nudge, then he just gets out of control. That's the nudge what just took in there. He has to correct it, but it's done damage, because then he goes into the area coming down to that hill in the brake zone, and it just gives away on him, turns him into the barrier, and that's his race done and dusted.
And I'm sure everyone at McLaren will just try and absorb whatever misfortune comes their way, but it is so reminiscent of last season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very tough to accept. I spent most of the race actually watching with Kimi, and Kimi's very sort of complacent at this moment in time. He's just taken it in his stride, but he knows it's valuable points lost towards his World Championship.
OK, Jenson Button finished on the podium as well. He's heading into the press conference. We'll do the same in just a couple of minutes' time.
Giancarlo, great scenes on the podium there with your race engineer Alan Permain. Looked like a perfect race from pole position.
Yeah, perfect race. Was a tough race physically, mentally, but honestly, I didn't drink in the car. I was quite confident, quite comfortable. The car balance was just fantastic. There was a little bit of graining, and that after the pit stop was a little small problem, but apart from that, it was great. It was great to have my engineer on the podium there, and I like to say thanks all the Renault Formula One team guys.
And an emotional weekend for you too.
Yeah, emotional weekend for me. It was important for me to do my best, because I lost a friend of mine 1 week ago, and I like to dedicate that race to him. Ciao Pietro.
Got to ask you about the conditions. Incredible heat out there. What was it like in the cockpit?
I was really hot, very, very hot. Already in the middle of the race, you are tired, and you say, I cannot go through the end of the race, but it's important to be concentrate and just keep pushing and don't lose concentration.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fernando, it says a lot about your drive from 7th place that Renault indeed led every lap of the race except one. A great start, a fight with Mark Webber in the early phase, and then past Jensen in the closing stages.
Yeah, it was good from the start. We tried to overtake people in the first corner. I really brake very late in the outside. I risked, but it was my only opportunity to overtake. I was very heavy on fuel, so on the track was impossible. Only defend my position like I did with Webber. And from there, I think the race was easier. 2 shorter stints at the end with new tyres, so I overtook Jensen. Unfortunately, yesterday we had this little problem in qualifying, and starting from the back was impossible to be close to the pole position.
But the car perfect today, and obviously very good with heavy fuel load and with light fuel load.
Yeah, the car has been good always here in Sepang, and this year as well. The R26, I think, will be competitive everywhere, and for me it's the perfect start of the championship. 18 points in 2 races is what I dream before Bahrain, and I try to win again in Australia and finish this first part of the championship away from Europe in the best way possible.
Congratulations. Jensen, well done to you too. 12th straight finish in the points, reliable, and P3. Renault's hard to beat though, obviously.
Very. You know, there was no point in the race really where we could have gone any quicker. The only problem we had was Scott's speed. He held me up for a few laps, and Fernando was able to jump me in the stop. But apart from that, you know, there was nothing else there. You know, that was the maximum I could get out of the car on the limit every lap, and that's the way it is at the moment. But you know, it's good to get on the podium in the second race of the year, and joint second in the or third in the championship, I think. So it's just not too bad, but we've got a bit of work to do.
Yes, you have to feel just a bit for Jensen Button. He's driving so well, doing nothing wrong. He's finished in the points for what, the last 12 races. Could have done no more today. No,
but I think we said yesterday, Steve, that Jensen's got the desire, but I don't think he's got the car underneath him yet. The Honda's still not quite got that race pace. It needs to lift itself 6, 7, 8 tenths per lap to match those Renaults, and at this point I don't see it happening.
Yes, we were talking during the course of race commentary about the lack of mid-race pace, especially after pit stops of that Honda.
Yeah, they just don't quite seem to hit it right. When they get the pit stop, they seem to get into traffic, and that holds them back a little bit more. But again, it's a sign of the team just being on its back foot slightly when it gets there, and I think when they do make that win sometime this season, the whole concept of the team will change.
Well, McLaren problems for Kimi Raikkonen, of course, going out on that first lap, but they got Juan Pablo Montoya in the points. Let's hear from him.
Juan Pablo, you got some points, but McLaren just not as racy as you threatened to be maybe earlier in the weekend.
I think we are. You know, we're so limited on cooling on the engine that cost us quite a bit.
Is that what was the problem?
Yeah, you know, we had to run so light on downforce. You see, my first sector was purple in the race, but you know, the other 2 sectors where you need the downforce, we didn't have it.
On the whole, how would you sum up the weekend for you personally and the team generally?
You know, it's better. For me, it was a lot better. Once we changed tyres after the first stint, the car was quite good. It's nice to feel.
Thank you.
Juan Pablo Montoya with a few positive thoughts, and Mark Blundell, thank you very much for your positive thoughts during the course of our coverage. And if you've missed any aspect of our coverage of this Malaysian Grand Prix, there'll be a rerun at 3:40 this afternoon on ITV1, and we'll have highlights later this evening, 11:15 p.m. of this Malaysian Grand Prix. But after all of that, there's still plenty more motorsport coming up here on ITV. Yes, a tremendous amount of motorsport to come here on ITV. Those British Superbikes, 3 o'clock next Sunday afternoon, the British Superbikes from Brands Hatch, and that's followed by the latest from the World Rally Championship, all the action from round 4 in Spain at 4:30 next Sunday afternoon. And then, of course, in 2 weeks' time, we're in Melbourne, round 3 of this Formula One World Championship. On Saturday, we'll have qualifying live at 3:30 in the morning, and you'll see a rerun of that qualifying session at 1:40 in the afternoon. And then on Sunday morning, the race, the Australian Grand Prix. We're live with our coverage of that for the at 4 a.m. That's for the build-up. 5 a.m. if you want to set the alarm just a little bit later for the race start itself. And we'll have a rerun at lunchtime and highlights later. But here in Malaysia, it's victory for Giancarlo Fisichella. Renault start the season 2 wins out of 2 and a 1-2 here in Sepang.
Get the latest F1 news and gossip. Log on to itv.com/F1.